I'm going to remember, thank you, John, to hit record this time so we don't get halfway through and realize we've missed half of the session like we did last time.
Not that that ever happens.
Yeah, and so we're going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to share my screen, and we're going to talk about the gradebook today. So I'm going to pick a course to work in Canvas. And with the gradebook, it's really kind of, if you're used to other LMSs, it's a little weird because in order to start building your gradebook, you actually have to start with the assignments tool in Canvas. And so in Canvas, every column that you want to appear in your gradebook has to start out as an assignment that you create and publish in the assignment area. So if you're trying to figure out how you get that column to show up, you have to head over first to your assignments area in Canvas. Once you're in assignments, you'll notice I have some pre-existing assignments, and there is a assignment group called assignments that is created by default when you start creating assignments. But one of the first things you might want to do when you're starting to build your gradebook and you're starting to create the assignments, to create the columns, is you might want to use the group feature that's available here in the assignments area to organize those assignment groups for you. And it does two things. It helps to keep the gradebook organized. It helps you to keep items together that belong together. And if you'd like to do graded, weighted grading in Canvas, meaning your exams are a certain percentage, your homework is a certain percentage, participation is another percentage, Groups allows you to do that very easily in Canvas. So you create a group for each of those different categories that exist in your syllabus, and then you can assign the weighted percentage that belongs to it, so that in the end, Canvas will automatically calculate that final grade using those weighted percentages that you've identified. To create a group in your assignments area, you're going to look at the top right corner of your assignments page, and there's going to be a button that says plus group. When you click that, you're able to create the different groups that you need. So for example, I'm going to call one participation. I'm going to create another one, and this one will be for exams. And I will create a third group, maybe for a group project. As I created each of those groups, you'll see that it added those groups to the bottom of the assignments page, okay? And right now, those groups are empty. I can either create a brand new assignment and assign it to those groups, or if you have pre-existing assignments that already existed, I can always drag and drop them into the new group where they belong. For example, if this particular discussion belongs in the participation category, I simply need to hover over this double column of dots, click, and then I can drag it down to that participation category. Again, if I need to move this discussion board down, I just click, hold, and drag. And I can do that again for maybe this quiz that's here. I can click, hold, and drag it down to exams. So you can always rearrange the assignments that you create and get them in the groups where you need them to be. The other thing that you can do is you can create assignments brand new. So if I need to create a brand new assignment, I'm just simply going to again come to the top of my assignment page, click that plus button, and then you simply want to give the assignment a name. This is going to be group presentation. You can place your instructions that students should be following in the text area at the top. And then what's important for Canvas to know is how many points is this assignment going to be worth. It could be 5, 10, 2, 100, whatever works, and whatever has been specified by you is what you would place here. The important thing here is that you have this assignment group drop-down list. This is how you tell Canvas which one of those groups we just created this assignment belongs to. So I'm going to select the group project group here. And then you have some other settings like should this grade be displayed as points or percentages, or is it a letter grade I want this to show up. Should this count towards the final grade or not? How is it going to be submitted? So if it's online, we always want to make sure we give students a way to upload a file to that online submission. Then we have what's a sort of a new feature for assignments. How many attempts are allowed? The default is unlimited. That's what it has always been in Canvas, but you now have the ability to limit the number of submissions for an assignment. And if you select limited, you can then specify how many attempts in total students can have for this particular assignment. I'm just going to go back to unlimited. The last set of options that we'll talk about are just when it's due. And I'll just pick a date here from next week. And I'm going to hit save. Once I create that assignment and go back to my assignment page, you'll see that it created that assignment and added it to the group project group. An important thing to remember when you're setting up a gradebook and you're creating assignments, if you forget to publish this assignment, that column does not show up in the gradebook. So if you are creating these assignments and you head over to your gradebook and you're trying to figure out where that column is because you know you created that assignment, you want to make sure you head back and publish that assignment from this page here. When you see the gray circle with the line through it, it means it's unpublished. I can simply publish that by clicking that icon and it'll toggle that to the green check circle. And you know now that it is published and available to students, and that column now appears in the gradebook the way you want it to. Any questions about creating groups, creating assignments, or rearranging them here? Okay, so the next thing we're going to talk about is how you assign the weighted percentages to those groups. So if you are interested in doing that sort of grading, again, you create the group first like we did. Then at the very top right, there's a button with 3 dots on it. When I click that button, there's an option at the very top of the list called Assignment Groups Weight. You want to make sure you click that option to turn it on. And when you do that, you get a pop-up window that allows you to tell Canvas that you want to weight the final grades, and you do that by clicking in that top checkbox. And once you've clicked in that top checkbox, you have the ability to assign the various percentages that you need for each of those assignment groups. So for example, participation can be 25, exams can be 40, the group project can be 15, and assignments can be 20. And as I entered the different percentages, the total was updated and it shows me that I've correctly given all of the percentages up to 100. Once I'm finished, I just want to make sure I click save. And you'll notice now that as I scroll the page, each group displays the percentage that it contributes to the total of the final grade in Canvas at the right-hand side of that assignment group category. If for whatever reason you needed to adjust a percentage, that can be done very easily. If you needed to adjust an individual percentage, each one of these groups has that a column of 3 dots at the far right. And when you click on that, you can select edit. And I'm able to adjust the percentage right here for the individual group. If I want to adjust everything from the same screen, I just simply come all the way back up to the top of my page, click that option, select assignment groups weight, and I can make the adjustments as needed. So it's never set in stone. You can always make adjustments throughout the semester if it's needed. Any question about assigning the weighted percentages? Okay, so the last thing that we want to talk about in terms of gradebook setup is rules that you might have that you want to put in place for a particular group. So maybe in your exams category, you use the top 3 highest scores. Maybe you drop the lowest score for them. Maybe in their participation category, you do that sort of rule. You can do that as long as you've created a group and assigned at least 2 assignments to it. And again, I'm going to click the dots and I'm going to click edit. And you'll see that there is an option here to specify the rule that you want Canvas to follow for this particular group. So if you want to ignore the one lowest score from this particular group, you simply have to say to Canvas, ignore the one lowest score, and it will automatically look at all of the assignments that exist in this particular group and drop the lowest score from the grade calculation for students. So it's no longer something you have to manually review and manually adjust. If there is an assignment in this particular group that should never be dropped, so it's an important assignment and that score needs to be included no matter what it is, you can always specify to Canvas, drop the lowest score except never drop this particular assignment. So Canvas will always keep the score for that assignment and drop the next lowest score if it happens to be lowest. Once you've put your rules in place, you simply click Save, and Canvas lets you know that a rule is being applied to a particular group by looking at the options to the right of the group title. Any questions about setting rules or percentages? Okay, so what we're going to do next is jump right into the gradebook. So again, what we did was we set up our gradebook by creating the groups we needed. We then assign the weight values and the rules for each assignment group, and then we make sure we create assignments and add those assignments to the groups and make sure they're published. If they're not published, they won't show up in the gradebook. We access the gradebook by scrolling that list of items on the left-hand side of your course in the course menu, finding grades, and clicking that grades link. If you are familiar with the gradebook, you've used Canvas before, you've used it for a couple of semesters, you'll notice in January that it kind of got a refresh look. It updated a little bit. So for those of you who are familiar with the old gradebook, this is the new look and feel that's available to you now. If this is your first time looking at the Canvas gradebook, then it's just the Canvas gradebook for you. One of the first things you'll notice is that the menus, if you were used to them appearing on the other side of the screen, they're now all on the left-hand side of your screen here. And the very first thing we see when we click grades is this default view of the gradebook. It's kind of a spreadsheet layout. All of your student names are listed in that very first column that's displayed on the left. If I scroll my gradebook to the right, that column of student names remains, and it allows us to very easily scroll through a very large gradebook and still be able to maintain the list of student names for easy grading and making sure you're not getting lost. What student are you grading when you're scrolling through that gradebook? Again, I can scroll back to the left and that student name column remains. This default view is the full gradebook. So you're seeing every student listed along with every assignment and all the grades together. But there is an individual view of the gradebook that you might need to use if you were meeting with a student, for example, and you wanted to pull up the student's grades but not allow that student to see everybody else's scores. You would want to switch to the individual view of the gradebook. And once I click individual view, our page changes a little bit, but I'm going to scroll down, and you would simply select the student who you want to look at, and you could also select the particular assignment that you wanted to pull up on the screen, and Canvas would update to show that information for that particular student and that particular grade. And you can see for this student it's listed as missing. Okay, so information about that particular assignment is displayed for that student. If I wanted to toggle to another student, I could use the buttons to go to previous or next, or I can use the drop-down list to select another student from the list. As we scroll down, it gives me an overview of that particular student. I can see their letter grades, the grades for particular assignments, the breakdown, as well as information about each individual student. If I'm finished working in this individual view, there's a drop-down list at the top right, and if I select Gradebook, it takes me right back to the default view of the gradebook. So you can toggle in and out of that individual view as often as you need. The other item that's available to you from this gradebook dropdown is very helpful. It's the Gradebook History. It really keeps a log of all of the changes that have been made to a particular student's grades, a particular assignment grade for your entire course. We have used this gradebook history to restore grades that have accidentally been deleted by instructors from a course. So this can be a very helpful piece of information. If you are team teaching a course with somebody, it allows you to see changes that are being made to the gradebook by the other instructor, so you can really stay on top of the changes that are made, when they're made, and how they're made. To get back to the gradebook, I simply click the link for grades in that course menu. The next menu that we have here at the top left is our view menu. And the view menu allows you to manage how the gradebook is displayed. So the very top option is arrange by, and it allows you to set the order in which the gradebook is displayed. So you can use the default order, or you can arrange it in order by assignment name, ascending or descending, by due date of those assignments, or by points for the particular assignments that's posted. Another new feature is that you can organize by module. So if you use modules to organize your course content, you can make sure that the gradebook is displayed in module order, okay? The other option that you have in this view menu is filters, and you can select options from these filter menus to give you a more precise view of the data. So if you want to look at a particular assignment group, like just exams, you can filter the gradebook so it shows you just the exam scores and the exam grades for students. The other option under filters is modules. So again, if you use modules to organize your course content, then you can filter the gradebook by those modules. So you can just look at the grades for module 1 if that was a particular view that you needed. Statuses is the next option that's available in this view dropdown. And when I click statuses, it gives us a pop-up window, and it gives us a list of all of the statuses that are available by default in Canvas. So if a student submits work late, that particular cell in the column for that assignment for that student will be colored in this kind of soft yellow color. When a student has not submitted by the due date you've specified, Canvas will give that submission a status of missing, and we'll color it in that color here. For submissions that have been, assignments that have been allowed to have more than one submission, you can also see when an assignment has been resubmitted, because it changes the color and it gives it a status of resubmitted. Dropped, if you've set a rule to say that we're going to drop the lowest score back in that assignments page, if you set that rule up, Canvas will let you know at a glance that this particular column score is going to be ignored for a student because it's being dropped. And Canvas also has a status called excused. You can excuse an assignment for a student. So if there is a student who does not have to submit a particular assignment, there is a way that you specify that that assignment is excused, and it will assign it the color here. All of these colors can be changed. So if you wanted to change them to colors that either make more sense to you or are easier for you to remember, you simply click the edit option in the far right, and you can select a different color by selecting the color from the list that's available. If you happen to know the hex code for the color, you can also type that in. So if there's a color that's not listed here that you want to display, you can find that hex code, type it in, and then once you hit apply, it changes the color that will be listed for that status. Soft colors, light colors are best, because if you choose a dark color, it can obscure the score that's listed there, so it's hard for you to see the numerical score that's listed if the color is too dark over top of it. When you're finished, you just click done, and it closes that statuses window. The very last set of options under the view menu are these column options that are available. The notes column is a column that you can turn on, and if I click notes, you'll see that I now have a column that appears right next to the student names, and it gives you a place to give notes about a student to remember for later. Okay, this is only information that's visible to you. It's not visible to the student. It's not visible to anybody else who has access to the gradebook. It's only visible to you as the instructor. And it allows you to just make notes that you might want to remember if you're in the middle of grading and you want to pick up with a certain student, or if you want to remind yourself why a student has been excused for a particular assignment, you can use that notes column to do that. The very last option is whether or not you want to see unpublished assignments in your gradebook. If you look at my view of the gradebook right now, it is showing any of those assignments, and these are just some template assignments we have created in this course. They are being displayed with the words unpublished. If I don't want to see them because they're cluttering up my view of the gradebook, and if an assignment is not published, it means I'm not grading it, so I don't need to see it in my gradebook, I can simply click to turn off the display of those unpublished assignments. So you see it cleaned up the view considerably of this gradebook. So again, nothing is set in stone. You can toggle any of these options on or off, or make any of those changes to those statuses, or the way that the columns are arranged or filtered. The very last set of options at the top left are the actions for the gradebook. And this is what you want to use if you prefer to work with the grades using Microsoft Excel outside of Canvas. So if you prefer to download this gradebook and make your manipulations in Excel itself and add the updated grades there, you can always export a copy of the Canvas gradebook, open it in Excel, make the changes that you need, and then when you save it, you would then be able to import the updated version of the gradebook. So instead of performing the grading or the changes and the updates here in Canvas, you can do it outside of Canvas in Excel and use the export and import features to update the gradebook in Canvas. Any questions about those menu options?
If you would excuse an assignment for a student, how does that calculate in the grade?
It basically ignores that assignment for the student, so it does not factor towards their final grade.
Okay.
Can you only excuse by individual view? Is that?
So if, for example, let me find. So if this student here does not have to complete this particular assignment, I can click in the cell, I can type EX, and it will excuse that assignment for that student.
So if that assignment is, say, 10 points for everyone else, the student will get, I mean, how will it average out in the end for the student?
So Canvas will average this student's grade without factoring in this 10 points. So if everybody else is graded out of 100, you'll say Canvas will calculate this student out of 90.
Oh, okay.
So it doesn't penalize the student. It doesn't calculate them out of 100, and so it doesn't look like they've lost 10 points. It will calculate them out of 90.
How to assign default grade like 0 if a student misses any assignment?
Yep. Okay, that's coming up next. So what we're talking about now is the different options for each assignment column in the gradebook. So as I scroll over any of those assignment columns, you'll notice that that option icon, the 3 dots, appears. When I click that, I get a menu of options that's available for each of these assignment columns. So Ali, set default grade is listed here. So if you very quickly want to give the same grade to every student, so if you've graded everyone who submitted and now you want to assign zeros to everyone else who hasn't done it, then you can say set default grade, and it says give all students the same grade. And so if I say give everybody a 0, for everybody who does not currently have a grade, it will automatically put that 0 in. Okay.
So we have to select individual assignment for that?
You would have to do an individual assignment for that. There's also a new feature that we can turn on that will plug in zeros automatically for students if they don't submit, but I'll get to that in a second. Okay. So again, I'm going to come back to this. I'm going to say set default grade. This time I'm going to switch it to 100, but I want to say overwrite the already entered grades, because if I don't do that, it'll ignore and leave those zeros in there. So now it's telling me that it updated everybody. So that's how you can very quickly and easily do a default grade. And again, it's by assignment. Okay. If I go back to the options for the column, you can sort. Again, you can sort from lowest to highest. You can sort to see which ones are missing and which assignments are late, so you can have a very quick visual of who you might need to reach out to. Canvas has the ability to communicate with students directly from the gradebook. So if I come back in here, and I'm just gonna update this and just remove a couple of these scores. If I click the option and I say message students who, I can actually say, I want to send a message to everybody who hasn't submitted this particular assignment yet. I can also say anybody who scored less than. I can also say anybody who scored more than, or anybody I haven't graded. So if there's a quick message that I want to send to students that says, I'm working on it, I'll have the grades updated by a certain time, or reminder, this is due by 5 p.m. tonight, I can very easily type that message in, and then when I hit send message, Canvas will automatically generate a notification to each of these two students, sending them the content that I've typed in, reminding them to come in and get those assignments turned in. So you don't have to come into the gradebook, find the students who are missing, come back out, go into your writer email, pull up an email, compose, remember who it's to. You can very easily do that using message students who write within the gradebook. If we come back to the list of options, Speed Grader is also listed here. If you have students submitting work in Canvas that you're going to want to grade in Canvas, Speed Grader is the tool that you can use for that, and I'll show you that in a second. And then we're going to ignore this grade posting policy for a second. We'll come back to that in a second. Any questions about the options that we see otherwise? So we'll talk about entering grades. So we did it briefly. If you want to enter grades for a particular student, you can just find the column for the assignment, find the student name, and when you click on the cell, it allows you to very easily type in a score for a particular student. I also have the ability to open up the grade detail tray by clicking this arrow that appears to the right of that cell. And it opens up this bigger window, and it's called, again, the grade detail tray. It shows me who I'm grading here at the top. It reminds me what assignment I'm grading. I also have a link to the Speed Grader if I want to get there. I have the ability to update the score numerically. I can also update the status. So if you have a student who, for whatever reason, could not submit the assignment in Canvas, so it's listed as missing, but they emailed it to you, and you scored that assignment that they emailed to you, you can change the status from missing to none or from late to none so that it does not look like they're being penalized in the gradebook. So you got the assignment, you scored it manually, you can also update those statuses manually. You can also provide feedback by text comments by entering that in the comment field. Once I hit submit, that is saved, and that comment trail is available to me here in the gradebook. So students can respond to those comments, and you can respond back to them by using this grade detail tray area. If I needed to score the next student, I could come up here to the top and click the arrow, and it would navigate me to the next student. I can also go to other assignments by clicking the arrows for the assignments. To close the grade detail tray, you just click the X that's at the top left corner, and it takes you out of that view of that particular column in the gradebook. If you want to grade in the gradebook, Speed Grader, I'm sorry, you click Speed Grader. It takes you out of the gradebook, and it takes you into the Speed Grader for the course. If a student has uploaded and submitted a Word doc or PowerPoint presentation, an Excel spreadsheet, any of those types of files, you would actually have a display of that file here on the left-hand side. You have the ability to annotate directly on that particular submission. So you can give them comments, you can highlight, you can strike through, it's almost like using track changes for Word, but it allows you to do the work here in Canvas. And on the right-hand side, you have the same options that we saw in the grade detail tray, where you can give a numeric score as well as text-based comments by typing them in here in the speed grader. In the speed grader, you have some additional options. You can attach files. So if you downloaded their file and you made changes in Word, or you commented on it in a different way, you can save that and return those files to them. You can also record right in Canvas a media comment. So if you want to narrate or walk them through the annotations you made to their document, you can do that using the media comment button here. If you happen to be using Chrome as your browser, you also have this speech recognition button, which allows you to do speech to text. So I can actually say what I want to type, and Chrome will take what I'm saying and convert it to text. So again, that's a feature that's available if you happen to be using the Chrome browser. To get back to the gradebook from the speed grader, there's an icon at the top left of your screen, and when I click that icon, it takes me right back into the gradebook. Any questions about that? Okay, so we are going to talk about settings now. So at the very top right of the gradebook, there's what looks like a gear icon. And when you click that gear icon, it takes you into the settings area for your gradebook. And so for those of you who are familiar with the old gradebook, these two options are new to Canvas. The first one is a late policy. So you can automatically apply a grade for any missing submission for a student if you set that here in the late policy tab of your settings in the gradebook. So if, for example, I want to have a 0 be entered automatically for any student who has a missing submission, I simply turn that checkbox on and then enter the 0 in the percentage text box. What that will do is, as soon as the due date has passed for an assignment, if a student has not submitted by that due date, Canvas will automatically place that 0 in for the student. And this is a good thing, because what happens if we don't turn this on, Canvas grades the students based on the work they've submitted. So if you have not remembered to go in and plug that 0 in for those missing assignments, then what a student is seeing is kind of an inflated version of their grade, because Canvas is only grading them based on the work they've actually submitted. So if those zeros are not put in, a student actually looks like they've got an A or a B. It's not a true representation of their grade. So this kind of takes the onus off of you remembering to go in and plug those zeros in for all of the assignments after those due date passes, because Canvas will do it for you automatically. You can also choose Canvas to apply a deduction for late submissions. So if you have students who have turned in an assignment late and you want to penalize them by a certain percentage based on how late it is, you can turn on this option to automatically apply a deduction. And then you want to specify the percentage that's being deducted. So if you say I'm going to deduct 5% per day, then Canvas will automatically do that calculation. So if you've graded the student's submission and you've given that student a 90, Canvas will then take 5% off of that 90 based on how many days late the submission is automatically. And you can also set the lowest possible grade. So if you say, you know, keep deducting until we get to a 60, and the 60 is the absolute lowest score that I want recorded for the student, then Canvas will apply the deduction until we reach that 60% limit that you've specified. Again, if you don't want Canvas to do that, you leave that option off. And again, you can leave that option off. So it's not required. It is up to you if you want to use it. The best thing to do is to set this at the start of the semester. So if you know you want to have these policies in place, you want to make sure you turn those on at the start of the semester before you start grading. Any questions about the late policy?
So if the student submits the assignment after the 0 has been added for missing submissions, that it's redone?
So yes, so if the student submits after the grade has already been assigned of 0, then when you enter the score they've earned, that 0 is removed and replaced with the grade that you enter. And if you've set up this deduction, it will take the deduction off based on how late it is.
Okay.
Yeah, so you always have the ability to override anything that's in the grade book. Nothing Canvas does can't be changed by the instructor.
So if we wanted to do that, we would have to click both of them probably at the start of the course?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So the second tab that you see here in this settings area is called Grade Posting Policy. And so it's not necessarily a new feature, it just has a new name. If you were using the mute and unmute feature that was available in the previous gradebook of Canvas, this grade posting policy is basically your mute and unmute. It just has a different name. Setting the grade posting policy here in the settings area sets it for the entire gradebook. So if I say that I want grades to be posted automatically, this setting will apply to every assignment that I create and add to my gradebook. If I say I want this to be manually, then again, this setting applies to every assignment that's been added to my gradebook. Manually post grades is the old mute option. What this means is all grades are hidden by default. They will remain invisible to students until you choose to manually post those grades. It helps in a couple of ways. If you are grading, you've got a pretty large class and you started at the top, students in Canvas, when you don't have this mute option on, they will receive a notification as soon as you score that assignment. They are alerted that there's a grade, that there's a comment. And so what can happen is you can have students who are at the bottom of your list reaching out to find out why they haven't been scored yet because they're talking amongst each other and they know that somebody else has already received scores. When you manually post the grades or you mute those grades, those notifications are temporarily held. Canvas doesn't send them out to the students. So you can grade in peace from the first student to the last student. Once the grades are ready to be posted, Canvas gives you the option to manually post those. So again, if you want those grades to be hidden by default and you only want them to be posted when you choose to make them available, then you want to select manually post grades. If you are okay with students being notified immediately as soon as you've graded an assignment, then you would leave it set to automatically post grades. Again, this is a setting that you should put in place at the start of the semester before you start grading anything, so that it's not something you have to remember and go back and do manually for each individual assignment.
So Diane, when you were asking before about will students receive a notification if they get a 0, if you have that late policy set for where all students get a 0, depending on when I said, depending on what your posting policy is, this is what I meant. So if students are going to get that 0, however you have manually post grades on, until you actually send it out, they won't get it, if that makes sense.
Thank you.
Okay.
No problem.
I'm going to leave this set to automatically because I also want to show you how you can toggle this on an individual basis. So I'm just going to click update and I'm back in my gradebook and I'm going to scroll over and I'm just going to go to this group presentation. So again, I'm going to click the icon to give me the menu of options. And you'll notice here's that grade posting policy I said we were going to ignore and come back to. It's listed at the very bottom of this menu. When I click grade posting policy, I get this little pop-up menu on the side, which gives me the exact same 2 options we saw before, except now it's going to be applied just to the group presentation assignment. So this is not setting it at the course level for all assignments. It's setting it at the assignment level just for this particular one. So again, I can leave it set to automatically, or I can choose manually, and I'm going to choose manually. Canvas is going to remind me that students will not get notifications about their grades or changes or submission comments while it is set. And then I'm going to go ahead and click Save. when you set the manual option, either for all of your assignments or an individual assignment, you'll see the word manual appear underneath the assignment title. So what happens now is if I start entering grades for students, none of the notifications that students would normally get are being sent right now. And you'll also notice that a little icon appeared at the top left of this column, this little eye with the line through it. What that's letting me know at a glance is that I've entered new scores that students can't see right now. So it's reminding me that these scores are not yet visible to students. If I've graded everyone who submitted and I'm ready to release the scores to those particular students, again, I go back to the options icon. And now you'll see that I have the option here that was not visible before to post grades. And so when I select post grades, it's showing me that right now there are 3 grades that are hidden from student view. And I have 2 options. I can either post it to everyone, or I can just post it to the students who were graded. I'm going to select graded because I want the other students who have not submitted yet. If I select everyone, later when they submit and I score them, they'll get notified right away, and I don't want that to happen. So I'm going to select graded so that it will only post the scores to the 3 students who currently have a grade. And I'm going to select post. You'll see that little eye icon has disappeared. So has the visual indicator that those are new. And those scores now have been posted to those 3 students that I graded. So again, the mute and unmute feature still exists. It's just controlled now by what they are calling the grade posting policy. I can set it at the assignment level by choosing either automatically or manually. And manually is the mute. When I've selected that option, when I enter scores for students, you'll notice there that icon pops up again for me, reminding me that there's now a new grade that is not visible to a particular student. And again, I can post grades by going back into the options, clicking post grades, and then saying post the grades for the students who are graded. Okay. If you don't want to mess with manually posting grades and doing all of that, then you simply leave the column set to automatically. So those are your 2 options, either automatically, which means as soon as you score, the notifications go out immediately, students can view their grades immediately, or manually, which will mute the scores until you choose to manually post them when you're ready. Any questions about that? Because that can be a little confusing.
Danielle, does that answer the manually post grades for just that one particular?
Yeah,
Sorry, I didn't see that.
Yeah, you just post them. That's
Yep.
this whole mute unmute changeover. It really messed me up last semester.
It messed us all up. It messed us all up. We were pretty upset with them for making that change. It was like, why? It wasn't broken. Why did you do that?
So Quelly, I just wanted to clarify real quick. If you wanted to do that for all the assignments, you would go to the top right-hand corner with the gear icon. That way you wouldn't have to. Perfect.
Absolutely. So,
thank you.
And that's what you would do at the start of the semester. Once all of your assignments are created, you come into the gradebook, set it, then you don't have to remember to do it for each individual one.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Fun fact, my personal preference when working with faculty or doing it myself is just to have it manual from the get-go. That way I'm a control freak completely, so that way I know when I'm sending it out.
Yep. Okay. So you'll notice that I also now have this hide grades option. So once you've posted grades, you still have the ability to temporarily hide them from student view. So if there was a reason that you needed to revisit a particular assignment, or there was a question and you want to take it away from their view temporarily, you can still do that by hiding the grades. So even after you've posted them manually, if for whatever reason you wanted to hide the grades for a particular assignment, you can still do that by going into the options and then clicking hide grades.
Actually, I do have a question about that. So if the grades are hidden, even if they're in the grade book, in that final, at the end of the grade book where it has the the final calculation, are they calculated in that or not?
I'm trying to remember. They're not, they are supposed to be, because they actually still exist in the gradebook. They're just hidden from view. They're not hidden from being calculated. So they should still be showing up in this total value here. The only time the scores or a column doesn't get included is if there are no points assigned to the assignment itself. Then it won't include it in that calculation.
Okay.
But again, that's something I think we'd have to double check to test to make sure they haven't changed that on us. Other questions about that?
The problem I've had with the total scores is that, like when I've used the attendance roll call.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
But it happens with assignments as well, is that it seems to me that Canvas, you know, if you've had only 2 classes and the students missed one, they have a 50 for attendance. And so they get all upset because they say, why do I have a 50? I've attended all the class, you know, or I've only missed 1 out of 4. Why do I have, you know,
so I'll
75?
show you. So when you use this attendance feature, oh, and it's taking forever to show up. Okay. So if you happen to use this roll call attendance that's available in Canvas, and I'm just going to mark everybody present. When I go back to my assignment page, you'll see that this roll call attendance assignment was automatically added to my assignments area. I didn't ask for it, but Canvas just gave it to me. In order to take it out of your gradebook, you can do a couple of things. I'm going to click here and I'm going to click edit. One thing you can do is you can make it out of 0 points so that it's no longer affecting the gradebook in that way. The other thing that you can do is if we click roll call attendance and then I click edit assignment settings, I can either say do not count this assignment towards the final grade, or under the display grade as, I can say this is a not graded assignment. And what that does is it takes it out of the gradebook completely. So it will no longer factor into your grades in a way that you don't want it to.
Right, but if you do want to use it,
okay.
That's
so
the problem.
If you do want to use it, I'm going to go back to my assignments area. I don't
want the students freaking out.
You would want to make sure you move it either to its own category that has a certain percentage, so that whatever Canvas is giving them, it only affects their grade by 2% or 1%. It's not
small.
That 100 or that 50 missed the class is not penalizing them horrifically so. So you could create a new group called attendance that's only worth 2% of the grade. And then you would just make sure that you move that roll call attendance assignment down into that group. So there's a couple of ways to handle that so that it does not, because it really can have a really big impact on the grade book if you're not paying attention.
In the beginning of the term especially, right? All right, thanks.
Any other questions? And I was going to say, let me go into the settings really quickly of my Canvas course. And I'm going to scroll down and I'm just going to click more options. So those totals that we were talking about, and there's also a grade distribution graph that could be displayed to students from what's happening in the gradebook. If you don't want students to see those individual totals, so if you're using assignment groups, you will see a column in your gradebook for participation, for exams, for homework. If you don't want students to see those totals, you just want them to see the individual assignment scores and then their final total, you can hide the totals in the student grade summary. And there is a grade distribution. So each student can only see his or her own grades. But if you don't hide the grade distribution, they can see where they kind of fell. So they will see what the highest score was, what the lowest score was, where they fell in this grade distribution graph. If you don't want them to be able to see that kind of information, then you want to go ahead and hide that as well. If you've turned any of these options on, you want to make sure you update your course details to save those settings changes. Okay. Any other questions? Did we cover everything, John? Was there anything in the chat that I didn't get to demo or that I should go through?
No, we look good. There's a lot of folks very excited about the text-to-speech within Chrome.
I have a
just had
question.
a quick question about in setting up the assignments.
Okay.
If you wanted to set up a discussion board that's just for certain students, you can set up a.
Yeah, so that would be, let's go to discussions. So would this be like a team or a group assignment that you would be setting this up for?
Potentially, but it could be just that, you know, I want to do half the class with certain discussion questions and half the class with different discussion questions.
So if we create a new discussion, and we give it group 1, text here. You would want to specify that this is a group discussion. And we're just going to call this discussions. It doesn't matter here. You can create manually, or you can have Canvas automatically split. So if you just want Canvas to split the class into 2 even groups, then you can say split into 2 groups. Or if you wanted it to be in control of that, you could say I'll create manually.
Right.
Once I hit save, it's going to go ahead and create this. I'm going to do a save and publish. So it's created this discussion. And so each student will see this, but it's separately. They have access to this as discussion 1. That's the first half of the class will be in this particular discussion. And for the other half of the class, they have access to that particular discussion.
And they can be graded individually. So it isn't like a group project where I want them to all get the same grade for the group project. This would be where I'd want them to have individual grades. They're just each in a different discussion group.
Let's see. I'm going to say, because discussions and assignments are a little different. See, in here, we'd have to test that.
If we click graded, what did it say? If you click graded there, does it give you the option?
It doesn't give you the option like it does for, so if I created this as a group assignment, Canvas would give me an option here that says I want to grade students individually.
Right.
I'd have to test to see if I can still grade them individually here, or if I just give one grade. I believe you can still do it individually, but it's something that I want to test. Hang on, we'll do this really quick. Yeah, it did not automatically assign that grade to everybody in his group. So you can do it individually.
Okay. Okay, good.
Ali, did you have a question?
Yes.
Okay.
It's about the action when you export grade. So I can say for each column, or you can say for each homework, there are multiple column in the CSV file.
Yes.
So how can we minimize? I want only one column for each, not multiple columns.
So the not so helpful thing. Yes, I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
If you want to be able to import changes that you're making, you don't want to make changes to the gradebook that you've exported from Canvas. So you don't want to delete any of those extra columns that you see. So the short answer is you have to live with the extra columns, especially if you want to be able to import the changes that you're making and have them reflected in Canvas.
Okay.
Yeah, it's kind of obnoxious because there are a lot of columns that you don't want to see when you do that CSV file.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm sorry. Other questions? Okay. I'm going to stop recording and thank everybody for joining.